If you are here, you belong here. Those are the first words I ever heard Gene say. It was October 1972. And somehow I had found myself in a room full of mostly psychology grad students, and I was not one of those. But there was a business school guy, and there was a street hippie, and Gene was sitting at a table, on a table, at the front of the room, and his announcement was, "This is Changes. If you are here, you belong here." Seems like that beautiful spirit of inclusiveness is what I knew of him and learned of him all my life. Another thing he taught us at the Changes group, he said, we have two rules here. The first one is, it's okay to say no. The second one is, you can ask anyone for anything you want. And they have to come in that order. After you know the other person can say no, then you can ask them for anything you want. I thought, wow. I love the precision and the beauty of that order. And it's true. It made it very comfortable to ask people for things. The structure of the Changes group was that halfway through, anybody who wanted to could stand up and ask for anything in the community. And I was from a family background where I didn't know I could say no to things. I want to share with you today something like 7 or 8 moments where I learned things from Gene. Those are the first 2. So 8 things I learned from Gene in chronological order. Because I feel, as you do too, I'm sure that I am who I am today because of him. In great gratitude, I stand here with you. And so the third thing I want to share with you is, I was not a psychology student, but I was so curious, what is he teaching in his psychology classes? So I took one. It's called an elective. You can take a class outside your own field. Mine was linguistics. And instead of psychology books, we were studying Jean-Paul Sartre, Merleau-Ponty, and Martin Heidegger. And he gave an assignment in that course that changed my life forever. I don't remember doing the assignment. It was the assignment itself that changed my life forever. He said, your assignment is to take an original idea of your own and then start there and write a whole paper developing it. Here's the part that changed my life. You will know your own original idea because it will be fuzzy. If you have a clear idea, it's probably somebody else's. Oh my gosh. I'd never been given permission by an authority figure to have a fuzzy idea, much less that I would value that idea more than the clear ideas that other people had given to me. And yet, and although I must say I didn't read those books that he'd assigned in that course, and I didn't have his philosophy even to the small amount I have it now, that assignment gave me the essence of what he would have wanted me to know. Start with your own fuzzy idea and respect that. Well, the next thing that happened was that he wrote his book, Focusing, and he began to teach focusing in workshops because people began to ask him for that. And I happened to reach out to him because I was excited about something right around that same time. And he said, oh yeah, why don't you come down and join me and other people in teaching these workshops? So I became one of the many people who was assisting him in his weekend workshops bi-monthly at the International House in Chicago. And I have been gifted all the rest of my life from his ability as a teacher. So many things. One of the most delightful things was his understanding that when you send people off on an exercise and they come back and you ask them, how was it? The first 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 people who speak will all be the ones who had a good time and who are telling you what worked. And the other people are all being quiet, and the more people say how good it was, the more quiet the other people get. So after there were 2 people who said good things, Gene would say, okay now. We've heard from the people who had a good time. I want to hear from the people who had trouble. And then he would lean forward, this delight in his eyes, and say, give me trouble. Such a different attitude to be a workshop leader and know that we want trouble. We want to hear from the people who didn't, who could use some help, who got this far and need a little assistance to get a little farther. It was beautiful. And another amazing moment in those wonderful weekends. This too changed my life. People wondered, by the way, why I took notes every weekend. He says, haven't you heard him talk before? It's always new. Anyway, so one thing that seemed to happen every weekend was he would say something like, focusing requires a friendly attitude to what comes. And 100% of the time, someone in the room would raise their hand and say, but what if I can't be friendly to it? And Gene would say, then see if you can be friendly to that. And I'm like, what? You mean not being friendly is also a that? Oh my gosh. And actually, most of my work developed from that moment. What is the that? That's the not being friendly. And then who am I then if I can keep turning toward what comes and the response to what comes and so on. So that was the 5th one. I want to say something about Gene as a psychotherapist. He was not my psychotherapist. And in fact, we only had ever one session. It was a DreamWork session in front of a group. And yet, his way of being, his writings, his books have gifted me so much in my ability to just be with people. And so I just wanted to say a quote by him that rings in me every time I'm with somebody. And that is that there are no rules for the kind of person we must be. That what is needed is to be a person with a person. And we all are that. And so inclusive, so acceptive, so validating. And that's how I've felt him in every situation I was in everything I ever saw him say to anybody else as well. The absolute interest and acceptance in what anyone would have to say, including trouble. Well, then I want to say a little about Gene's philosophy, which is really impossible to say a little about. But so I said, well, there's one sentence that maybe captures it for me, and that is, nothing ever is. Well, nothing ever is means a label cannot tell the truth about any living being. No person ever is. No animal, no plant ever is. The next sentence is, nothing ever is, it is and. Life is always living forward into its next steps. There is no holding still, there's no on-off switch if you're alive. This is not just somebody saying, oh, we need to be aware of wholeness and interconnectedness of all things. This is a fundamental view of life itself, and in a way it comes back to, if you're here, you belong here. Because as I came to understand more and more about Gene's philosophy, I began to understand he's talking about understanding the whole universe as if humans belong here, as if life belongs here. We're not a tiny little annoying scum on the surface of a cold planet at the far edge of a galaxy that's mostly made up of deadness. We are here. We belong here. And life itself is continually regenerating at every moment. And we are that. So for the past, I think, 7 or 8 years, I've had the great privilege, my next generation of contact with Gene, of co-creating with him a series of phone classes. And then for the past 3 years of that, his cognitive decline got to the place where he could very sharp and aware and very present, but he couldn't organize and remember to teach a class. So we shifted the emphasis of the classes so that they were simply people saying things to him and him saying something back. Conversations at the edge, we called them. We did about 7 of those with Rob's help. And I just want to say something from those classes, because they were so priceless, so precious to be present, is that he started using the term the bigger system. I hadn't heard him talk about that before. Although it's there in that amazing quote you read at the beginning of it. The bigger system, he would say, well, we could ask the bigger system. Never defined, but we can feel, yeah, there is a bigger system. If you're here, you belong here. those are my 8 moments. But before I stop, I just want to say how much I miss Gene. Because I never had a conversation with him except, well, I should say that in positive terms. In every conversation I ever had, or every conversation I ever heard him have, or every video I ever saw of him, there was always something new, unexpected. I could never predict what he was going to say. I'm so glad we had so many years of that. And now we walk forward with the missing of that. Thank you.